For most homeowners, the largest monthly payment that we make is our mortgage. The bright side is that there are several ways that we can save money on our mortgage payments, and it's really important that we learn about this stuff and take advantage of it because the savings can be positively life-changing. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking about 3 different ways that you can save money on your mortgage. We're going to start by going through each of these ways individually, showing how big of a difference they can make in your personal finances, and then we're going to talk about a scenario where you put all 3 methods together to potentially save over $100,000 on your mortgage. Let's get started. Hey everyone, Daniel here, and welcome to Next Level Life, a channel where you can learn all about investing, debt, retirement, and many other financial topics besides, because let's face it, the schools aren't going to teach it for us. So if any of those topics sound interesting to you, or if you want to learn how to better handle your money and have more financial freedom, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell next to my name to be notified every time I upload a new video. And if you want to further support the growth of this channel, you can check out some of the links I've left down in the description below, which includes a 30-day free trial of Audible and 2 free audiobooks of your choice, as well as a list of some books on money I'd recommend checking out with your free trial. Or you can smash that like button if you haven't already, share this video with a friend, and leave a comment below letting me know what topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. So, in order to properly illustrate how life-changing it can be to learn how to save money on your mortgage payment, I'm gonna need to explain a few statistics first. The first stat that you need to be aware of is the median home sales price in America, which as of 2018 is $225,000 according to the real estate website Zillow.com. The average mortgage interest rate, again as of 2018, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5% to 5%. The median household income in the US is about $60,000 a year, and the typical personal savings rate is roughly 6%. Meaning that, on average, Americans save 6% of their annual income each year. Assuming you earned 8% per year on average on your investments, which historically is about what the stock market has done over the long haul, and that all of this savings were going towards your retirement nest egg, which usually isn't the case as some of it would be going towards major purchases like new cars, phones, and possibly down payments on homes, but if it was, you would be financially independent according to the 4% rule in a little over 45 years. Now with all this in mind, let's take a look at the following example. Let's assume that John and Jane are 25 years old and take home $60,000 a year. And let's assume that they recently bought a new home. They bought the home for $225,000. They made a 20% down payment on it, received an interest rate of 5% on a 30-year loan, and as a result, had a monthly mortgage payment of $966.28. Under this scenario, assuming that John and Jane did nothing to lower their housing costs, they would pay $167,860.57 in interest over the course of the loan. That's an average of nearly $450 a month, or roughly 9% of their total household income. Again, in interest alone for 30 long years. But assuming nothing out of the ordinary happened, they maintain their 6% savings rate and retire a little over 45 years down the line when they're 70 years old and have a paid-off home. That's not horrible, but it is also a fairly idealistic example. Not many people are going to buy a home and stay in it for 45 years. But that's okay because we can do better. Let's look at what would happen if John and Jane took advantage of one house hack and started paying their mortgage bi-weekly instead of monthly. Creating a bi-weekly mortgage payment schedule instead of just making one monthly payment helps to save on interest because since you're making half of a mortgage payment once every 2 weeks instead of one full mortgage payment every month, and because there are 52 weeks in a year, you end up making 26 half mortgage payments throughout the year, or the equivalent of 13 full monthly payments instead of the usual 12. Now there are a couple of things to be aware of if you do want to take advantage of this method. The first is that you should always make sure that your additional payments are going to be applied towards the principal of your mortgage only. Sometimes if you don't explicitly ask for this, some mortgage brokers will put that money towards future mortgage payments, which is not what you want and it's not going to help you very much, since it won't actually be reducing the value of your loan. Second is to be sure to check with your mortgage company before switching to a bi-weekly payment method, because some mortgage brokers only accept these extra payments at specific times and can even charge you prepayment penalties. In the case of John and Jane's mortgage, they checked with their mortgage company and found no issues regarding switching to a bi-weekly payment schedule, so they're going to go forward with that plan. And under that plan, they would pay $483.14 towards their mortgage principal every 2 weeks. And as a result, their mortgage would be paid off in just over 25 years. And they would only be paying $135,880 in interest. That's a savings of nearly $32,000, or a little over $100 a month on average over the course of that loan. Under the same retirement scenarios before, assuming John and Jane put the money they saved in interest on their mortgage towards their retirement nest eggs, they would be able to increase their effective personal savings rate from 6% to about 8%, and as a result, retire a full 4 years sooner at the age of 66. That is absolutely insane. They saved 4 full years worth of having to put money away to retire by simply putting 1 extra monthly mortgage payment's worth of money towards their mortgage. A second thing that you can do to save money on your mortgage is to go for a 15-year loan instead of the traditional 30-year loan. This does have the drawback of making your monthly mortgage payment higher, but for the amount of savings and additional time without having a mortgage bill that you can get from doing this, it may still yet be worth it. Especially if you plan on staying in your house long term. Let's go back to John and Jane's example from earlier. The value of their mortgage after their 20% down payment is $180,000. With their interest rate of 5%, they have a monthly mortgage payment of $966.28 on a 30-year loan, and would end up paying the $167,860 in interest over the course of that loan. If they instead signed up for a 15-year loan, their monthly payment would jump up to $1,423.43, assuming the interest rate stayed the same, which normally it's a bit lower on a 15-year loan, but I'm just trying to make this simple here. But because they're doing a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year loan, they would only end up paying $76,200 in interest over the life of the loan. Compare that to the 30-year loan when they paid almost $168,000 in interest. That's a savings of over $91,000. And what's more is that after those 15 years, when John and Jane no longer have a mortgage payment, they would raise their personal savings rate to over 25% and become financially independent in 25 years at the age of 65. And that, of course, is assuming that, for whatever reason, they were still going to be starting from zero once their mortgage was paid off. Or in other words, during the entire time they had that 15-year mortgage, they didn't invest anything, which probably would not be the case. A third thing that you can do to save money on your mortgage is to put a large down payment on the home. This is hugely important for a couple of reasons. The first is that the majority of the interest you pay on a mortgage is paid in the first several years of the loan, when the mortgage balance is at its highest. For example, on John and Jane's 30-year mortgage from earlier, they paid 20% down and had monthly payments of $966. Of that $966, $750 of it went to interest in the first month of the loan, and only $216 went to the principal. As a matter of fact, it would take John and Jane 16 years and 3 months until the majority of their monthly payment went towards paying down the principal instead of the interest on their loan. That's over half the time of the entire loan that is spent paying mostly interest. The second reason that a large down payment is so very important is that if you don't put enough money down on the home, and by enough money this usually means 20% or more, you may end up being forced to get something called private mortgage insurance, or PMI. This is basically a way for the lender to protect their investment, in this case the money they're lending to you to buy the home, in the event that you have to default on your mortgage. The sad part for the home buyer is that the PMI does nothing to help pay down the mortgage. Really, it delivers no value to you whatsoever as a buyer, and it can cost anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of the total amount of the loan every single year, and sometimes even more than that. And just think about how much of a real pain that could be. I mean, houses are freaking expensive. Think if instead of putting 20% down on the home, John and Jane instead only put 5% down on the home. and as a result they had to get PMI. Well, now the value of their mortgage would be $213,750 instead of the $180,000 it was before because they have a smaller down payment now. And their PMI could be costing them anywhere from $90 to $180 a month due to that higher mortgage amount. Oh, and since the loan is higher than it was before, so is the mortgage payment and interest costs. Under a 30-year loan, John and Jane's monthly payment in this scenario, with the 5% down payment, would be $1,147.46 a month instead of the $966 they had before. And they would be paying about $200,000 in interest instead of the $167,000 that they paid in the previous scenario. Over the course of 30 years, that's another $80 or $90 a month going towards interest than it would have been with a 20% down payment. Under a 15-year loan, we'd see a similar story play out, although not quite as extreme, with the monthly payment being $1,690 under this new scenario instead of the $1,423 we saw before. And John and Jane would pay about $90,000 in interest under this lower down payment scenario instead of the $76,000 that we saw with a 20% down payment. Either way, it's not a fun story for John and Jane. Thankfully, the same ideas can work for them in reverse if they put a larger down payment on the home. If, instead of putting 20% down on the home, they saved a little while longer and put 30% down on the home, the value of their loan would be $157,500. Their minimum monthly payment would be $845, assuming it was a 30-year loan, and $1,245, assuming it was a 15-year loan. And the amount of interest they would pay under a 30 and a 15-year loan would be $146,878 and $66,690 respectively. So now, just for fun, let's look at what would happen if we had John and Jane do all of these things to help save money on their mortgage. They still buy the $225,000 home, but this time they put 30% down on it. They make bi-weekly payments, and they signed a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year loan. In this scenario, John and Jane will have paid off their home in 13 years and 4 months, while paying a mere $58,600 in interest over the life of that loan. Compare that to the scenario from the start of the video where John and Jane paid almost $168,000 in interest when they signed the traditional 30-year loan with a 20% down payment, but did nothing else to save money on their mortgage, and you can see how big of a difference this can make. John and Jane are free from their mortgage bill a staggering 200 months, or 16 years and 8 months, sooner than before, and they saved $109,266.33 in interest. That is an average of $682.91 a month. And if I do say so myself, that is pretty nice. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out that these are by no means the only ways to save money on your mortgage. These are just 3 of the most common ways that I felt could apply to the majority of people. Depending on your situation, you may also be able to lower your property taxes by having your property reassessed from time to time. You may be able to get your monthly payments recast if you make some large payments early on. And of course, sometimes you can refinance your mortgage to save on interest as well, among other things. So I encourage you to look into those things for yourself and see if any of them apply to you. But even if you don't, there's still a lot of ways to help save money on your mortgage. And before I wrap this video up, I do want to address one of the yeah buts that I'm sure have probably already been written in the comments section. The yeah but that I'm talking about is the yeah, but couldn't you make more investing in the stock market instead of paying off your home? And the answer is, well, it depends. Historically, the stock market has averaged an annual rate of return of about 8%. So in theory, John and Jane could have done better for themselves by doing everything within their power to get their monthly mortgage payment as low as they could. Even though that would mean they're paying more in interest over time, if they invested the difference into the stock market, since their expected ROI was higher than their interest rate on the mortgage, they still could have ended up doing better. And if they did, they may very well have ended up doing better. However, an average return of 8% in the stock market doesn't necessarily mean that you make 8% every single year. Over the course of 5 years, let's say, you might lose 10% the first year, gain 20% the second year, lose 2% the third year, gain 15% the fourth year, and 17% the fifth year. Arithmetically speaking anyways, technically, that still is an average return of 8% per year, but it's far from consistent. Now, even in a situation like that, that doesn't mean you wouldn't come out ahead investing the difference. You very well might, especially if you stick to the plan over a long enough period of time, but it is something you definitely do need to consider and decide for yourself. This is personal finance after all. It's about more than just the mathematics. Are you going to be disciplined enough to put that excess towards your investments month in and month out, no matter what happens? Are you going to be stressed out having that large of a loan hanging over your head for 30 years? If the stock market does crash and you lose your job as a result, possibly even in the first few years after you buy your house, do you have a solid plan that will make sure that you are going to be okay seeing those investments go down when you need them the most, with that loan still hanging over your head? Maybe you do. I obviously can't answer these kind of questions for you, but definitely make sure to answer them for yourself, especially if you're investing the difference you gain from creative financing. But that'll do it for me today. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button if you haven't already, subscribe, and hit that bell next to my name so you'll be notified of all my future uploads. I generally upload every single Monday, and if you have a friend that would be interested in this kind of content, be sure to share it with them. Let's really get this information out there and start our own financial revolution.